Did you know that a film about angry schoolboys almost never got made because no English school wanted cameras inside their walls? The movie was too dangerous, too real, too rebellious. But one director refused to give up. He found a school during summer break. He snuck his crew inside, and he created one of the most shocking films Britain had ever seen. That movie was If, starring a young unknown actor named Malcolm McDowell. It changed cinema forever. It changed his life, and it hid secrets that most fans never discovered. Let's dive in and discover 20 weird and amazing facts about If... Number 20. The title came from a famous poem. The movie's strange title confused many people. Why just the word if with 3 dots? The answer goes back over 50 years before the film was made. Rudyard Kipling, the famous English writer, wrote a poem called If in 1910. The poem talked about becoming a man. It talked about staying calm when everyone around you loses their heads. It talked about courage and strength. Director Lindsay Anderson loved this poem, but he also wanted to twist its meaning. Kipling's poem celebrated traditional English values. Anderson's film attacked them. The poem said, "Follow the rules and become great." The film said the rules are broken and must be destroyed. By using the same title, Anderson created a dark joke. He took something the English establishment loved and turned it upside down. The 3 dots after if suggested a question. What if everything you believed was wrong? What if the system that raised you was your enemy? What if the only answer was rebellion? Most viewers never realized the title was a secret message. They thought it was just a strange name. But Anderson knew exactly what he was doing. He was declaring war on tradition with a single word. The title looked simple. The meaning was explosive. Number 19. Malcolm McDowell was a complete unknown today. Malcolm McDowell is a legend. Everyone knows his face. Everyone remembers his roles in A Clockwork Orange and dozens of other films. But in 1967, when If started filming, nobody knew who he was. McDowell was just a young actor from Yorkshire with almost no experience. He had done a little bit of theater. He had appeared in a few television shows that nobody watched. He was struggling to pay his rent. Then he auditioned for Lindsay Anderson. The director saw something special. McDowell had fire in his eyes. He had anger in his voice. He seemed like a real rebel, not someone pretending to be one. Anderson cast him immediately as Mick Travis, the student who leads a violent revolution. It was a massive risk. The whole film depended on this unknown kid. But Anderson trusted his instincts, and those instincts were perfect. McDowell brought Mick Travis to life with terrifying intensity. He didn't act like a rebel. He was a rebel. The camera loved him. Audiences couldn't look away from him. When the film became a hit, McDowell became a star overnight. He went from nobody to somebody in a single movie. Director Stanley Kubrick saw If and immediately wanted McDowell for A Clockwork Orange. That role made him immortal. But it all started here, with a young man nobody knew taking a chance on a dangerous film. The unknown became unforgettable. Number 18. The school said no. Then changed its mind. Finding a location for If was a nightmare. The film showed terrible things happening at an English boarding school. It showed cruelty. It showed violence. It showed rebellion ending in gunfire. No school wanted to be associated with such a story. Anderson contacted school after school. Every single one refused. They were afraid parents would be angry. They were afraid their reputation would be ruined. They were afraid of the truth the film might reveal. Anderson was running out of options. Then he had a clever idea. He would ask schools during their summer holidays, when students were gone and buildings were empty. He approached Cheltenham College, a real and famous English public school. The headmaster was nervous. But Anderson promised the students would never see the filming. He promised the school's name would be changed in the movie. He promised everything would be professional and respectful. The headmaster finally agreed, but only for the summer break. The crew had to work fast. They had only a few weeks before students returned. Every day was a race against time. They filmed in empty dormitories and silent hallways. They used the real chapel, the real dining hall, the real grounds. The location gave the film its authentic feeling. Nothing looked fake because nothing was fake. These were real buildings where real students had suffered real punishments. The walls seemed to hold memories of pain. What no school wanted to show, one school accidentally revealed. Fear became honesty on film. Number 17. The black and white scenes were not artistic, they were necessary. One of the most famous things about If is how it switches between color and black and white. Some scenes are bright and vivid, other scenes are gray and shadowy. For decades, film students have analyzed this technique. They wrote papers about its meaning. They said the black and white represented fantasy, or memory, or the cold reality beneath colorful dreams. But the truth is much simpler and much more embarrassing. The production ran out of money. Lindsay Anderson had a tight budget that kept shrinking. Color film stock was expensive. Black and white film was cheaper. When money got really tight, Anderson switched to black and white just to survive. He couldn't afford to shoot everything in color, but Anderson was smart enough to turn this problem into art. Instead of admitting the budget had failed, he pretended the switches were intentional. He told journalists it was a creative choice. He let critics write their theories about hidden meanings. Years later, Anderson admitted the truth in interviews. The switches happened because of money, not meaning. But by then, nobody cared. The technique had become legendary. Film schools taught it as brilliant innovation. Other directors copied it. What started as a budget disaster became a visual revolution. Anderson accidentally invented a new way of telling stories. Poverty created poetry. The mistake became a masterpiece. Number 16. Real schoolboys appeared as extras. To fill the school scenes, Anderson needed dozens of young actors, but hiring that many performers would cost too much money. So he found another solution. He used real schoolboys. Local students were recruited to appear as extras in the background. They wore school uniforms. They sat in classrooms. They marched in formations. They made the fake school feel completely real. But there was a problem. Many scenes in If were violent or disturbing. Parents weren't told exactly what their children would witness. The boys saw fights. They saw punishments. They saw the older actors behaving in shocking ways. Some parents complained afterward. They said their sons came home talking about things no child should see. Anderson didn't apologize. He believed art required sacrifice. He believed truth mattered more than comfort. The real schoolboys added something no professional extras could provide. They looked genuinely confused. They looked genuinely scared, because they were. These weren't actors pretending to be frightened students. These were actual children experiencing something strange and intense. Their real reactions appeared on screen. Their real faces filled the crowd scenes. Viewers could feel that something authentic was happening. Not everyone was performing. Some people were just living through it. The line between movie and reality blurred. Art borrowed from life without asking permission. Number 15. The cane beatings were almost real. One of the most disturbing scenes in If shows students being beaten with a cane. This was a real punishment in English schools at the time. Boys who broke rules were hit on their bodies with wooden sticks. It was legal. It was accepted. It was horrifying. Anderson wanted to show this cruelty honestly. He didn't want fake-looking punishment. He wanted audiences to feel the pain. The actors who received the beatings were not actually hit full force, but they were hit. The cane made contact with their bodies. It left marks. It caused real discomfort. Malcolm McDowell later said those scenes were not pleasant to film. The sound of the cane was real. The flinching was real. The anger in his eyes afterward was real. Anderson believed that showing violence honestly would make audiences hate it. He didn't want people to enjoy watching pain. He wanted them to feel sick. He wanted them to question a system that allowed children to be beaten. The scene worked exactly as he intended. Viewers squirmed in their seats. Some looked away. Others felt their stomachs turn. Anderson showed the truth, and the truth was ugly. The beatings looked real because they almost were. Comfort was sacrificed for honesty. Entertainment became education through pain. Number 14. The naked cafe scene. Shocked everyone. In one famous scene, Mick Travis meets a mysterious girl in a roadside cafe. They talk, they connect. Then suddenly, they are wrestling naked on the floor while she growls like a tiger. The scene came out of nowhere. It was wild and strange and completely unexpected. Audiences in 1969 didn't know how to react. Some laughed nervously. Others were offended. Critics argued about what it meant. Was it a fantasy? Was it real? Was it a dream sequence? Anderson never fully explained. He liked the confusion. The actress was Christine Noonan, making her film debut. She had to perform this intense scene with almost no experience. She was brave and fearless. She threw herself into the moment completely. The scene was filmed in a real cafe that the crew had rented. The owner didn't know exactly what would be filmed there. When he found out later, he was reportedly not pleased. The naked wrestling became one of the most talked about moments in the film. It represented freedom. It represented wildness. It represented everything the strict school tried to suppress. Mick Travis was breaking free, not just from rules, but from civilization itself. The scene was strange because freedom is strange. It doesn't follow logic. It doesn't ask permission. What shocked audiences in 1969 still surprises viewers today. Some scenes never lose their power to disturb. Number 13. Lindsay Anderson had never made a feature film like this. By 1968, Lindsay Anderson was respected but not famous. He had made documentaries. He had directed plays in theaters. He had won an Oscar for a short film called Thursday's Children in 1955. But he had never made a major dramatic feature that reached wide audiences. If was his chance to prove himself. It was also terrifying. Everything could go wrong. Anderson had to manage actors, crew, budget, schedule, and his own vision all at once. He had never done anything this complicated. Many people doubted him. They wondered if a documentary maker could handle a real movie with stars and special effects and complex scenes. Anderson proved them wrong through sheer determination. He worked 18-hour days. He fought with producers over money. He pushed actors beyond their limits. He treated the film like a war that had to be won. His documentary background actually helped him. He knew how to capture real moments. He knew how to make fiction feel like truth. He brought honesty to every scene. When If won the top prize at the Cannes Film Festival in 1969, Anderson finally had his proof. He wasn't just a documentary maker. He was a real filmmaker. The doubters went silent. The gamble paid off. One chance was all he needed. Number 12. The script had a different title for years. The screenplay for If wasn't always called If. For years, it had a completely different name, Crusaders. Writer David Sherwin started developing the story in 1960. He based it partly on his own terrible experiences at an English boarding school. He remembered the cruelty. He remembered the unfair punishments. He remembered dreaming of revenge. Sherwin worked on Crusaders for years, but nobody wanted to make it. The story was too dark, too angry, too dangerous. Then Lindsay Anderson read it and fell in love. He saw exactly what Sherwin was trying to say. He understood the rage beneath the words. Anderson worked with Sherwin to reshape the screenplay. They made it sharper, they made it stranger. They added surreal elements that blurred reality and fantasy. And they changed the title. Crusaders sounded too heroic, too noble. Anderson wanted something more mysterious. He chose If because it asked a question without answering it. The new title suggested possibility. What if students fought back? What if the system collapsed? What if everything changed? Sherwin agreed the new title was better. It captured the spirit of uncertainty. The old title told you what to think. The new title made you wonder. Sometimes a name change transforms everything. The Crusade became a question, and the question haunted audiences for decades. Number 11. The film was inspired by a French masterpiece. Lindsay Anderson didn't invent the idea of rebellious students attacking their school. He borrowed it from a French film made 35 years earlier. In 1933, director Jean Vigo created Zéro de conduite, which means zero for conduct. It showed French schoolboys rebelling against cruel teachers. It ended with the students taking over the school in chaotic celebration. The film was banned in France for over a decade. Authorities thought it was too dangerous. Anderson saw Zéro de conduite as a young man and never forgot it. He loved its wild energy. He loved its anger. He loved how it turned children into revolutionaries. When he made If, he openly admitted the influence. He wasn't trying to hide it. He was paying tribute. But Anderson went further than Vigo. Zéro de conduite ended with celebration. If ended with violence. Vigo's students threw things and cheered. Anderson's students picked up guns and started shooting. The French film was playful rebellion. The British film was actual war. Anderson took Vigo's dream and made it a nightmare. He asked what would really happen if students fought back with everything they had. The answer was blood and fire. The homage became something new. The tribute became a transformation. Old inspiration led to fresh horror. Number 10. The ending was almost banned. The final scene of If shows students climbing onto the school roof with machine guns. They open fire on parents, teachers, and administrators gathered below. Bodies fall. Chaos erupts. The headmaster is shot in the head. It was the most violent ending British cinema had ever seen. Censors were horrified. They wanted to cut the scene completely. They argued it would inspire real violence. They worried that angry students might copy what they saw on screen. Lindsay Anderson refused to change anything. He believed the ending was essential. Without it, the film meant nothing. It was just another complaint about schools being unfair. With the ending, it became a revolutionary statement. Anderson argued that the violence was symbolic, not literal. It represented the desire for change, not actual murder. Eventually, the censors backed down. They allowed the film to be released with its shocking conclusion. But they gave it a strong rating to keep younger viewers away. The ending remained controversial for years. Every time violence occurred at a school, someone mentioned If and wondered if films were to blame. Anderson never apologized. He never regretted his choice. He believed art should disturb comfortable people. The ending that almost disappeared became the most remembered moment. What censors feared, audiences never forgot. The gunshots echoed through cinema history. Number 9. Malcolm McDowell. Kept Mick Travis alive for decades. Mick Travis, the rebellious student played by Malcolm McDowell, didn't die at the end of If. He didn't die in real life either. Lindsay Anderson loved the character so much that he brought him back. In 1973, Anderson made Oh Lucky Man, with McDowell again playing Mick Travis. But now, Mick was older, trying to survive in the adult world. The film followed his strange adventures through British society. Then, in 1982, Anderson made Britannia Hospital, and Mick Travis returned once more. This time, he was a reporter investigating a troubled hospital. 3 films, 3 decades, one character. Anderson used Mick Travis to explore how Britain changed over the years. The angry schoolboy became a struggling adult, became a confused journalist. McDowell grew older on screen, and so did Mick. It was like watching a real person age through fictional stories. No other director had done anything quite like this with an actor and character. Anderson and McDowell became artistic partners for life. Their friendship began on If and never ended. The rebellious boy in the school uniform became a symbol of an entire generation. What started as one film became a trilogy. One character carried decades of meaning. Number 8. The whips were based on real cruelty. In If, older students called whips have power over younger students. They can give orders. They can punish. They can make life miserable for anyone beneath them. This wasn't invented for the movie. It was real. English boarding schools actually gave older students authority over younger ones. The system was called fagging. Younger boys had to serve older boys like servants. They cleaned rooms. They ran errands. They obeyed every command. If they refused, they were punished. The older boys could beat the younger ones. They could humiliate them. They could do almost anything without consequences. Writer David Sherwin experienced this cruelty himself. He remembered being forced to serve older students who treated him terribly. He remembered the unfairness burning inside him. Anderson showed this system honestly in If. The whips in the film are arrogant and cruel. They enjoy their power. They abuse it constantly. Audiences who never attended boarding schools were shocked. They couldn't believe such systems existed in modern Britain. Anderson wanted that shock. He wanted people to see what happened behind fancy walls and proud traditions. The film exposed a dark truth that polite society preferred to ignore. What looked like education was actually oppression. Privilege hid cruelty. Tradition protected abuse. The whips showed how power corrupts even children. Real horror wore a school uniform. Number 7. The guns were surprisingly easy to get. The final battle scene required machine guns, rifles, and other weapons. In most films, getting realistic guns involves paperwork, permits, and strict safety rules. But in 1968 Britain, things were different. The film's prop department found real weapons surprisingly easily. Some were deactivated military surplus. Some were borrowed from collectors. Some were rented from theatrical supply companies. The guns looked real because many of them were real, just modified so they couldn't fire actual bullets. Safety on set was important, but not as strict as it would be today. Actors handled weapons without the modern training required on film sets. McDowell learned to hold and aim the machine gun, but his training was minimal. The lack of strict rules created both opportunity and danger. The freedom allowed Anderson to create realistic action. The danger meant everyone had to be careful without much guidance. When the rooftop battle was filmed, blank rounds were used. The noise was tremendous. The flashes were bright. The effect was terrifying. Actors below genuinely flinched because the experience felt so real. What modern films achieve with computer effects, Anderson achieved with real explosions and real weapons. The old way was dangerous. The old way was effective. Sometimes risk creates authenticity that safety cannot match. Number 6. The film won the highest prize at Cannes. In 1969, If competed at the Cannes Film Festival in France. This is one of the most important film events in the world. Directors dream of winning there. Careers are made and destroyed on that famous red carpet. If was not expected to win. It was too British, too strange, too violent for some tastes. Other films that year seemed more likely to receive the top honor. But the jury saw something special. They saw a film that captured the anger of young people everywhere. In 1968, students had rioted in Paris. Young people around the world were demanding change. If spoke directly to that revolutionary moment. The jury awarded If the Palme d'Or, the highest prize at Cannes. Lindsay Anderson was stunned. Malcolm McDowell was overjoyed. The entire British film industry celebrated. A small, angry movie about schoolboys had beaten everyone. It proved that rage could be art. It proved that low budgets didn't mean low quality. It proved that honesty could triumph over expensive productions. The Palme d'Or transformed If from a controversial curiosity into an international masterpiece. What some censors wanted to ban, the world's most prestigious festival honored. The rebels won their prize. The angry boys became champions. Number 5. The music came from unexpected places. The soundtrack of If is haunting and strange. It uses classical music in ways that feel both beautiful and disturbing. The main musical piece is the Sanctus from the Missa Luba, a Catholic Mass performed in Congolese style. African voices sing Latin prayers over African drums. It sounds like nothing else in film history. Anderson chose this music carefully. He wanted something that felt both sacred and wild. The Missa Luba had been recorded in the Congo in 1958 by a Belgian missionary. It became unexpectedly popular in Europe. Anderson heard it and immediately knew it belonged in his film. The African rhythms added energy to scenes of British stuffiness. The religious words added weight to scenes of violence. Heaven and hell mixed together in sound. Other music came from traditional English sources, hymns, patriotic songs, establishment anthems. Anderson used these ironically. Songs meant to inspire pride became background for cruelty. Music celebrating tradition played while tradition destroyed young lives. The contrast was intentional and devastating. Viewers felt confused by the music. They didn't know whether to feel uplifted or disturbed. That confusion was exactly what Anderson wanted. The soundtrack attacked emotions from multiple directions. Ears didn't know what to believe. What sounded holy accompanied unholy acts. What sounded proud accompanied shameful behavior. Music became a weapon of irony. Number 4. One scene was filmed in complete secret. There is a moment in If where students explore a storage area beneath the school. They find old weapons, dusty relics, and forgotten military equipment. The scene feels like discovery, because it was. The crew found a real storage area at Cheltenham College that nobody had cleaned in years. It was full of actual military artifacts from previous decades. Instead of creating fake props, Anderson decided to film in this real space with real objects. But he didn't exactly have permission. The school had agreed to filming in certain areas. This basement wasn't on the approved list. Anderson sent his crew down anyway, hoping nobody would notice. They worked quickly, grabbing shots before anyone could stop them. The actors handled real historical objects. They explored a real forgotten space. The dust was real. The cobwebs were real. The sense of discovering hidden secrets was completely genuine. When the school administration found out later, they were not pleased, but by then the footage was already captured. Anderson apologized, but he kept the scene in the film. It was too perfect to waste. The secret filming gave the scene its magical quality. You can feel the authenticity through the screen. What was stolen turned out to be priceless. Permission would have ruined the surprise. Number 3. The girl character has no name. Christine Noonan plays one of the most important characters in If. She appears mysteriously. She seduces Mick Travis. She fights alongside the rebels at the end. But she is never given a name. In the credits, she is listed simply as the girl. This was intentional. Anderson wanted her to represent something larger than one person. She was freedom. She was wildness. She was everything the school tried to crush. Giving her a name would have made her ordinary. Keeping her nameless made her mythical. Noonan's performance adds to the mystery. She speaks very little. She acts with her body and her eyes. She seems to appear from nowhere and vanish into legend. Some critics thought she represented mixed fantasy. Others believed she was completely real. Anderson never clarified. He liked the uncertainty. The nameless girl became one of the film's most discussed elements. Film students wrote papers trying to explain her. Audiences debated whether she existed or was imagined. That debate continues today, more than 50 years later. One character without a name created endless conversation. Sometimes what is missing matters more than what is present. The girl with no name became impossible to forget. Mystery is more memorable than explanation. Number 2. Lindsay Anderson. Hid himself, and the film directors sometimes make small appearances in their own movies. Alfred Hitchcock was famous for this. Lindsay Anderson did something similar in If, but more subtle. He didn't appear as a character with lines. He appeared as a feeling that runs through every frame. The anger in the film was his anger. The hatred of unfair systems was his hatred. The desire to destroy comfortable lies was his desire. Anderson had attended an English boarding school himself. He had experienced the cruelty firsthand. He had been beaten. He had been humiliated. He had dreamed of revenge that never came. If was that revenge finally delivered through art. Every scene where students suffer reflected his own suffering. Every moment of rebellion expressed his own suppressed rage. The film wasn't just about fictional characters. It was about Anderson's real wounds, finally exposed for everyone to see. Viewers who knew his biography could feel him in every shot. His presence was invisible, but overwhelming. He hid himself by showing himself completely. The film was his confession, his therapy, his weapon. He fought his childhood battles again on screen, and this time he won. The director became his main character without ever appearing. Art healed what life had broken. Revenge was served cold decades later. Number 1. The film changed. How we see youth rebellion before. If. Movies about young people usually ended with lessons learned. Teenagers made mistakes, got punished, and became better people. Order was restored. Adults were proven right. If destroyed that pattern completely. The young people in this film don't learn anything. They don't become better. They pick up guns and start killing. There is no redemption, no lesson, no comfortable ending. Just fire and blood and rage. This shocked audiences in 1969. It shocked critics. It shocked anyone who expected movies to teach good behavior. Anderson refused to make rebellion look foolish. He refused to show adults winning in the end. He let the anger explode without apology. The film influenced countless movies that followed. A Clockwork Orange took its rebellious spirit directly from If. The violence of later films about youth culture can be traced back to Anderson's rooftop battle. He proved that cinema could show young people as truly dangerous, not just misunderstood, but genuinely threatening. This was new, this was scary, this was revolutionary. Every film about teenage rebellion since then exists in the shadow of If. Anderson didn't just make a movie, he opened a door that could never be closed. What poured through changed everything. Youth became a force, not a phase. Rebellion became art, not just crime. One film rewrote the rules forever. Bonus fact: the lost ending nobody saw. There was another ending. Before Anderson settled on the famous rooftop massacre, he filmed an alternative conclusion. In this version, the rebellion was smaller. The violence was less extreme. The students fought back, but the school survived. Authority won. Order returned. The rebels were defeated and punished. Anderson watched this footage and hated it. It felt false. It felt safe. It betrayed everything the film was trying to say. He understood that audiences might prefer a comfortable ending where everything returned to normal. But that wasn't truth. The truth was that real anger doesn't disappear quietly. Real rebellion doesn't politely surrender. If students genuinely rose up against their oppressors, they wouldn't stop at breaking windows. They would burn the whole building down. So Anderson destroyed the alternative ending. He never let anyone see it. He filmed the massacre instead and made it as violent as possible. No compromise, no comfort, no easy answers. The lost ending became a rumor among film historians. Some claim to have seen pieces of it. Others insisted it never existed. Anderson himself mentioned it in interviews but never showed it. He wanted the official ending to stand alone, without alternatives weakening its power. Somewhere, perhaps, the footage still exists. Perhaps it waits in an archive, forgotten and dusty. Perhaps it was burned along with the hopes for a gentler revolution. What was lost became legendary. The ending nobody saw proved that what we have is exactly what Anderson wanted. No accidents, no alternatives, only fire. If is more than a movie about angry students at a fancy school. It is a scream that echoes through time. It asks questions that still have no answers. What happens when rules become cruelty? What happens when tradition becomes a prison? What happens when young people stop asking permission and start demanding freedom? Lindsay Anderson made a film that refused to behave. Malcolm McDowell created a character that refused to obey. Together, they built something dangerous and beautiful and true. The schoolboys in their uniforms, the girl with no name, the guns on the rooftop, the blood on the ground. Every image burns itself into memory. Every scene asks you to choose a side. More than 50 years have passed, and the questions remain. Are you with the rebels or the establishment? Are you dreaming of freedom or defending order? Do you pick up the gun or bow your head? If doesn't answer these questions. It just makes you feel them in your bones. That is why it endures. That is why it matters. That is why we tell its story. If you enjoyed these secrets, subscribe for more. Every film hides a world of truth. We will keep uncovering them, one story at a time.